Hello everybody, it's DuckFaden07 and we are playing a 5-color domain deck again. This time it's completely different than what you're used to seeing from the 5-color zoo. We have some of the cards that are usual here, like Scion, Leyland Binding, Ragavan of course, but that's mostly it. Okay, so we will talk about this list a bit. So for a few days I was trying to make like a 5-color good stuff tempo pile. I played a lot of different variations of the list, tried a lot of different stuff, various cards in the main, in the sideboard, and I think after maybe working on the list for 2-3 days I come to the final list. I won't be making any more tweaks and changes to the list. I have today I brewed this exact list after some experience with playing a whole lot of different cards in the archetype, and I got to this final list today. Settled on every card choice in the main, in the sideboard, started the league, and immediately did a 5-0. I'm very happy when these things happen. So when you brew a list and immediately take it to the league, and immediately at first attempt you do a 5-0, it always feels very good. So what do we have here? We have classic breach or Murktide, whatever you want, a shell, where we're playing this standard package, I would say, of like 20 cards that always go very well together. That are Ragavan, Dragon Ray Channeler, Mishra's Bubble, Ledger Shredder, Expressive Iteration, and of course Unholy Heat. A counter spell did not always go in this type of shells, maybe only in the Murktide, but this is a 5-color deck, so it's not typical to have a counter spell in, but we got to play some kind of permission in this type of decks, and since this list can't support the stubborn denials, we got to have a counterspell, as a lot of these matchups require all kind of different type of interaction, and sometimes just removals are not enough. I mean, often removals are just not enough. Although we play 8 premium removals in this deck that are considered among best removals in the format, with 4 Leyland Bindings and 4 Unholy Heats, but Counterspell is additional very good interaction that will win you a lot of the games, and it's very easy to cast in this deck, and we will see how and why. Sometimes it is hard to do it on turn 2 because you will often go for domain, so you can have two blue lands on turn 2 if you want to play Sign of Jaco or I don't know, Leyland Binding plus another spell. But it is possible, and you will see it in this gameplay. I think I did it a few times, just a turn 2 counter spell, and then turn 3 finish the domain, play the Sign of Jaco or whatever other spells or something. Okay, so I built entire new mana base, very different from my usual domain Zoo mana base, and this one is perfected to be played in the red-blue based domain deck. So everything in this deck helps you cast Expressive Iteration plus Ledger Shredder plus another red spell. So you will have no problems with double spelling with this mana base in this deck in the huge number of situations. In most situations, I mean, and there we have Abundant Growth, which is another cantrip spell, which works very well with Ledger Shredder. It enables you to always have two spells to connive, make Ledger Shredder bigger, Mishra's Bubble also help there, and you can notice that a wide variety of these type of spells we play in a deck. So there is 8 artifacts, a lot of creatures, 16 creatures, but we have also 8 enchantments, which is huge. So we have 4 sorceries, we have 8 instants, so a lot of different card types, and we will very easily be able to get Delirium in this deck, and pumping the channeler to 3/3 and using the Unholy Heat in most cases will be very simple. Of course, Ledger Shredder also helps there. And you can see that mana base looks pretty clean, and it also works very well. We have 2 basics in this list, Forest and Island. Forest to be able to play around Blood Moon, use our Abundant Growths, Tear Sunders from the sideboard, but also a blue island, as this is other than red. This is basically blue. Blue is most important basic for this deck. If after Forest, of course, I'm trying to play around Blood Moon, but Island will still be the most fetched basic we need in this build. Okay, so there are a few strategies we are trying to do here. We can often go quick, play like a regular tempo deck, what often Emerted is doing, or Breach, Fair Breach, whatever you want. So often you are able to go turn 2 Sign of Draco, which is incredibly powerful play currently in the modern. There is not a lot of solutions for the Scion. I'm not saying it's impossible to kill it. Of course, there is Solitude, there is Fury, there is Leyline Binding, Terminate, whatever. But there is lot of decks, huge number of decks that don't have a solution for a turn 2 Sign of Draco, especially when they're facing them on the draw. So when you're playing first and you're able to cast the Sign of Draco, a lot of decks currently, a lot of tier 1, tier 2 decks in the modern right now just don't have a solution. Fatal Push misses it, Prismatic Ending misses the creature, Lightning Bolt misses the creature, Unholy Heat before they're able to get Delirium too. So it's not really easy to get rid of this creature. We have also Ledger Shredder there. A Ledger Shredder is another creature that will often be paired with a Mishra's Bubble on a turn we played, and it will immediately grow to 2/4. It's easier to kill, of course, but it just stays there, and if you're not able to do it, or you want to play 2 spells in your turn, you will trigger the ability, and providing Ledger Shredder owner with great value, of course, and just enabling Unholy Heat, enabling Channeler, and everything else. Okay, so uh, pumping also the Shredder to get a faster kill. And as I said, a counterspell is there to as another type of interaction, by not just having the removal, but also having access to this strong spell at the moment, which enable us to have a good matchup against a large amount of the metagame. Abundant Growth is there to fix us, as this is 5-color deck, but thanks to Abundant Growth, thanks to our sideboard spells, we are and a huge number of these 12 spells that are red, plus Furies on the sideboard, Brotherhood's End, and other stuff, we are able to play very good when playing against Blood Moon, and often the Forest plus Abundant Growth can completely fix the mana when playing under the Blood Moon, and it gets much easier to play it. And Abundant Growth is such a good fit with Ledger Shredder already, and the Dragon Ray Channeler, Unholy Heat, so it's just deck very well fits together. And this variety of card types available in this deck make a Dragon Ray Channeler Unholy Heat very consistent and working like really powerful engines. Okay, so On the sideboard, we are playing Brotherhood's End. This card it works very well in a variety of matchups. It's mostly for hammer time, but also I used it in the last league to win against the Scales. It's good against Death in Texas. Against I used it against the humans, I think, in last league. For the win, killed. Used it against Izet Proves. Killed three of their creatures with one Brotherhood's End on my turn three, which definitely won me the game. Fury, similarly. I use it in decks against decks that are very fast, and just being able to kill two creatures for 0 mana and still play Ledger Shredder, for example, on turn two, get the connive ability from the Fury. It feels very powerful in most situations where you're bringing it in when it's good. So a very good card to have access to on the sideboard, and we can play it because it has 16 red spells in the main, which is more than enough. Okay, so some Graveyard Hate with Nihil Spellbones. Nihil Spellbones was a very good choice for Graveyard Hate. For me, in the matches I played in the last few days, Engineered Explosives as best solution for a variety of decks. Also, the card I bring in against the Rhinos, the card I bring in against Hammer Time, food decks. Also, just very often card I use very often from the sideboard in really large variety of matchups. There we have Tear Thunder. This card for 4 mana exiles any permanent. It's good against Kaldra. It's good again, like exiling Urza Saga when playing against Renan 6. It goes around indestructible because it's an exile, so you can exile Kaldra with Tear Asunder. It's a very good card to bring in against Blood Moon matchups where you can use it as a Blood Moon removal with just one forest in play, and but also for 4 mana you can exile anything with it, even Murktide and any spell, and it's very useful because it's so versatile. Okay, so other than that, playing some additional counter spells on the sideboard, we have two Darwin's Vetoes as additional counter spells and minor misstep to fight those spell-based decks like Cascade decks, Creativity, and stuff like that. Okay, so that is it, and we will just go now through the matches from the last 5 League I played today. Okay, so all the wins were 2 except for the last game, where I kept pretty bad hand on game 1. Okay, so I'm playing first, having pretty good start. Ragavan is there, very good hand with Heat, Channeler, Iteration. First matchup was Burn. My opponent decided not to attack with Guide, but to leave it in the block. I had a removal, and you can see just how good was this Channeler. Immediately on turn 2, I immediately got Delirium, which just shows how this variety of card types I'm playing in a deck can help. And just getting access to the Delirium on the same turn I play the Channeler feels very good. My opponent lost some life because of the fetching, so I had a pretty good clock. They suspended 2 counter Rift Bolts, but I was saving counter spell just in case they had something nut in the hand, and they had a lot of these burn spells, so I let all of this resolve and just countered their final kill spell to and I had enough damage on the field to finish them next turn. So that was game 1 against Burn. So game 2, playing second should be a bit harder, but yeah, I use my Fury very efficiently to gain advantage in this game that really can be gained on another way. So they go for a Dolan on turn 2. just play my second Triumph and kill a Dolan without losing life, which was very important. Now I go for the Scion and crack the bubble, save the Unholy Heat. My opponent goes for the Boros Charm, which is okay. I put my Scion on the field. I'm holding the Heat. I have the counter spell in hand. Basically have everything I need to control this game. My opponent, yeah, definitely plays some of a lot of burn spells from hand. I have a good clock here. 2-turn clock with Ragavan Scion while holding the counter spell all the time. So I just counter their Deflecting Palm, which was the kill spell, and force them to top deck another Boros Charm for the win, which of course they didn't have, and because they already played two of them. So that was the game against the Burn. Very quick games as always. So let's go to the game two. Match two, sorry. In the match two, this time playing second, kept one lander, but I think it's very safe to keep one lander with this type of hand. I have a turn one channeler, a bubble. I'm also having Ragavan here, plus two draws from Abundant Growth, so feeling very good about it. And I draw into Breeding Pool. I was on the draw, so I draw into Breeding Pool, which was very good. And my opponent immediately used a Shining Shoal to prevent me from killing the champion of the parish. So at this point, they already played three of their cards, exiled Lavinia from their hands, so they had just three cards in hand, and it seems that my opponent was a bit greedy, and they kept one lander, which ended up costing them the game. They did a lot of damage. They had, as you can again see, I got a turn 2 Delirium, which is just very good. When you can do this consistently, means that the deck is very well built. Okay, so I see Adelina on the top of my opponent's library. I saw Talia's Lieutenant last time, so I really hoped my opponent won't get the land again, so they didn't get it. I decided to go for the block. I'm already low on life, so they had another Shining Shoal, decided to go face with it, and I play my Leyland Binding, exile their Champion of Parish, play the blocker, and start attacking with this channeler that's got to attack, of course. So I just played my Ragavan. I decided to jump with it anyway because they have Thales Lieutenant in hand in case they go for Thales Lieutenant, so I was going to jump this anyway. I play my Ledger Shredder, I play the Ragon, I play the Abundant Growth, got another Surveil, drew into the channeler I saw on the top, so attacked for 3 more damage here, and now I have a Ledger Shredder. I have multiple options, so if they draw a land, I can jump with Ragavan again. If not, they can't attack the Shredder, so I go for the Channeler plus Scion Draco, get a counter on Ledger Shredder, attack for 5, so I have multiple blockers this turn now. With Scion they can't even attack if they top deck a land. So and that was it. I drew into Leyland Binding to remove their Initiate, and there was just no reason to attack with the Scion to risk them having the Shining Shoal. So I stayed back with Scion. I forced them to jump the Ragavan. They had the shoal, but so it was a good decision not to attack with Scion, definitely, and they concede on their turn. That was the game. Okay, so time to see the match 2 against Mono White Humans. Deck that was very popular. In last month. Okay, so they start with Esper Sentinel here. I was waiting with my Fury, hoping for them to play 2 more creatures on their turn. They played just a champion, but that was good enough. So I really wanted to Really wanted to cast my bubble here, cast the Shredder, so immediately I went for the Shredder, a Fury, get the Connive, put the counter on Ledger Shredder, play my bubble, and just start growing this Shredder so I can start with the attacks. Drew into another Shredder plus a Channeler. This is pretty decent for the next turn. They have Destroy boarded in Destroy Evils to deal with my Science and Shredder, which was, to be honest, pretty good. But I had too much stuff going on. This Ledger Shredder and the Channeler was just very good at fixing me, and I find the iteration so I can get Delirium next turn, plus try to trigger Shredder again. My opponent just plays land, passes the turn. They were probably full of these interaction spells like Destroy Evil, similar. I just attack this turn. I just played my Shredder. I wanted to put Shredder in the field to trigger them, try to trigger them both next turn with Expressive Iteration. So I decided not to use the heat here, felt no need to use it, just wanted to double spell on my turn, so I kept the land on top, I take the third heat, take the Skull in turn to get another red source to be able to trigger the Shatters, so I went for Unholy Heat, discarded one of the heats, second heat, discarded the Ragavan, kept Scion plus heat in hand, pretty much looking unbeatable for anything my opponent is able to do. And they just draw into another land. I got 5 damage at this point on the field, so I just play my Scion so I can maybe trigger Shudder if they play something in combat, like some creature with Unholy Heat. Nothing happens. So they just pause the turn. I go to attack with everything. They had the Shining Shoal, of course, another one to just kill my Scion, but the 5 damage is still going through. So I just fetch past the turn with 2 removals in my hand. And that was it. They didn't get anything relevant and conceded the match. So that was this was match 2 against a human of mono white humans. So we can now watch match 3. Okay, so in the match 3, again playing second plus mulliganing to 6 cards. So in this deck our triumphs are Rafine Tower and Ziatora Proving Ground, and it's very common to start a game with Stomping Ground and then going for Rafines, or going Rafine on turn 1 plus Stomping Ground on turn 2. Okay, my opponent got the Ballista with 2 counters, which was pretty good start for them. I just played my Ledger Shredder on 2, find the Hollow Fountain. They triggered my Ledger Shredder, which was pretty good for me. Played their Automaton, played the Ballista. I got a full domain by playing this Ziatora tapped, and I decided to go for the binding immediately, so I get the trigger on the Shredder, and you know, if you have some experience in playing against hardened scales, then you know just how dangerous can the Vulcan Ballista be in this deck, and you just really want to get rid of it if you're able. In a lot of situations, my opponent again triggers my Ledger Shredder, but they had 2 cards in hand and probably 2 best cards hardened scales player can hope to have, so uh, Arbound Ravager, it's definitely best card in the deck, and Zabaz is fine too. Plus, Ozolid can really mess up your mat and do a lot of damage. So they find the animation module here, and I had to go for the Leyline Binding. I should have done this before, but I forgot they can go for animation module. So they were able to get 2 tokens in the meantime. 1 token from getting counters on Ozolith, and the second from putting from token. So this was not ideal situation for me at this point, but my plan was just to attack with one of my creatures and jump with others. So I was just hoping to draw into one or two creature each turn, so I can chop the big attacker from the opponent, and I got the Scion. I had a Scion in hand plus this Unholy Heat just to trigger the connives, so I can attack and jump on the next turn. And I was able to, with this strategy, just putting jumpers on the field, I was able to raise my opponent and have the guaranteed kill for the next turn. So that was the game. Okay, so that was pretty close game against Hardened Scales in game one. So game two, I kept decent hand. I had Ledger Shredder plus Bubble. This is always fine because you're getting the connive on turn two, and you can fix a lot of fishes just using this. So I went for the Ledger Shredder and the Bubble. Doing the connive, hoping to go for the Fury next turn. Didn't use my bubble because I was again hoping to get connive next turn, but my opponent killed my Shredder, not in a very good way though, so they use this voltage surge, which means they have to sacrifice an artifact, which doesn't seem like thing you would want to do, but for me it's fine. I went for this card is very good, like Tear Asunder in this matchup. It's great. You're just exiling their stuff without them getting anything from the hanger back and similar. Just feels very good. I had used my one of my Furies here. Unfortunately, I didn't get a fifth land, so I had to pitch cast them. I I put this damage like this. They weren't able to use the animation module, and they went for attack with servo, and they got a third counter on the servo, making another servo token, and then they used another voltage surge to kill my creature, which was fine. I was thinking a bit with this iteration. I decided to go for the land so I can hardcast the Fury next turn. I also had the explosive. So I had multiple options. Again, my opponent drew into this voltage surge card. They really drew a lot of them. I think it was 3 or all 4. Not sure. 3. It seems like 3. Okay, so I wasn't able to attack with Fury because my opponent had those Mishra factories. Still, my Ledger Shredder is just 1-3, so it doesn't feel good to. I still get the damage through. I don't want to put myself on 2 life. My opponent plays the Ozolite and plays the Vulcan Ballista, triggering my Ledger Shredder. So, luckily I was on 4 life, so just played my Brotherhood's End, destroyed both their Ballista and Ozolite this way. This meant that I am dead if they draw another Ballista, but yeah, like there's just one card and they already had one, so I like my chances. And now I was able to start attacking here. I played Tear Asunder on their automaton and continue attacking with Fury. My opponent in this situation decided to change Fury for the Mishra Factory. So this was okay for me. I was now it was a bit easier just defending in this situation. It wasn't so much removal dependent, and I was able to attack with both of my creatures, holding 2 blockers back while having a lethal for the next turn. All of my creatures are flyers, which is also very convenient and good in a lot of matchups. And that was it. So that was game 2 against Hardened Scales. And we can now move on to the match 4. Okay, so match 4, I mulliganed to 6 cards. Kept hand just in lands interaction, which is actually fine for this deck. It's not like when you're playing the, I don't know, domain zoo lists, you kind of really depend on having the threat. But this deck is more comfortable of playing the long game. Has a better mid and long game using really powerful spells like uh, iteration, having good top decks like Scion, like Shredder, DRC, Counterspell, and you can now see like one example when I used Counterspell on turn 2. So sometimes you can do this when you have 3 lands, which is pretty often. So I just played my land holding the Leyline Binding. That was the plan for this turn. My opponent was obviously on Heliod's combo. I went for Scion. I accidentally tapped the Sacred Foundry. I really wanted to leave Sacred Foundry untapped, but accidentally just tapped it. So I was forced to to pay life to go for the Stomping Ground. And then I decided to get rid of the Walking Ballista too. It's such a good threat in this deck. I went for Iteration, exiling, putting Ziatora in my hand and the Leyline into exile, so I can play it immediately, which means next turn I can cycle this Ziatora and play the Unholy Heat. My opponent goes for the Butterskull, but this time I have the Delirium, so I'm just able to heat it and hold mana to cycle the Ziatora, of course. I draw the card from the bubble. My opponent has the Heliod, but they need 6 mana to be able to kill me with Ballista on the same turn. So I just go for the Abundant Growth, but unfortunately only to find another land. Continue attacking with my Cyno Draco. And I got top decked Ragavan for possible lethal damage on this turn. But my opponent had something, yeah, they got a Ganjo. So they got rid of my Scion. I just played Stoneforge Mystic from opponent's deck. I used Fetch to like remove those lands from rest of my deck. And just past the turn, they had a land, so which means at this point Walking Ballista is good for them. It combos, but I now have the Leyline Binding, holding Leyline Binding, so that won't work. I also find the Giver of Runes from the top of my opponent's deck and pass the turn with Leyline Binding feeling pretty safe of winning this. And they go for the Butterskull, but it doesn't do much now because I have Giver of Runes, and that was the game. Okay. So that was game 1 against Mono White. It was not Mono White actually, it was Celestia, Helid, but mostly Mono White. So I kept a hand with multiple removals. Tira Thunder is such a good card against Heliod. If we had access to this card when Heliod was a tier 1 deck, it would be much easier for a lot of deck to deal with. So I went for upkeep Unholy Heat to get rid of the Giver, can't attack with Channeler into Sanctifier. So I'm just preparing to cast my Scion next turn to prevent this Sanctifier from attacking me. So just to find my Raffine's Tower. I have the Heat, I have the Asunder for whatever they find it, so feeling pretty good here. Pretty safe. I I played again Heat in upkeep, destroying Stoneforge Mystic, uh, looking for top card before drawing, and removing Fury in the graveyard, drawing lands to play the Sign of Draco, and now I'm in a much better situation. I have a very good clock there. I'm protected from a Sanctifier attack. They've obviously had something here, but as they attacked with Sanctifier into 4/4, but I was fine with them using a Ganjo on me and killing me with a Ganja. So I just got finally this very good card, especially in this matchup, this Tear Asunder. I was able to exile the Sanctifier, which was really preventing me from attacking with this Channeler. So I got. I saw Leyland Binding on top, so I used my Abundant Growth to draw it. Immediately exile Ballista to prevent them from drawing a land and going Heliod combo. They had the Heliod, but I had another bind. I found another binding on top, so I was able to just play my Sign of Draco for a little damage next turn, while also holding Leyland Binding the whole time. So again, a pretty helpless situation from my opponent. Of course, they go for the Solitude, destroy my Scion, but I still have a little for next turn with the Channeler. I play my Brotherhood Zen to destroy their sword and to get the Scries. I put a land into the graveyard and still holding the Leyland Binding. So they really, with one card in hand, can't win this. So that was the game I attacked with the Channeler. Sorry, they had the Solitude this turn, which was a very good draw for them, obviously. But I had Scion to finish them off next turn, plus Leyland Binding to prevent them from gaining any life. And they were on 0 cards at this point, so they needed another Solitude probably to survive, and didn't get it, so that was it. That was the game, the match against Celestia Heliod. And now we can watch the trophy game, final game. Playing against John, this was, I really kept, this was the worst hand I had in this entire league. I decided to keep it, hoping to draw into something and try to use Ledger Connive to get rid of spare lands from my hand, but I drew into another land, which was very bad draw, obviously. And my opponent had the Renin 6 on their turn 2 to kill my Channeler, which was pretty devastating concerning my current hand. So in most situations, you will, in this deck, you will play creatures on turn 1 and 2, and then you will hold a counterspell or other interaction on turn 3. That's the usual plan, and the opponent just kind of had everything here. Ran for 2 of my channelers, both for my Ledger Shredder. I had the Dark Confidant, which I wasn't able to kill, so I just conceded. That was it. I drew into another land, which was terrible, and that is it. That was the game. So very quick loss. Just drew into bunch of lands, got flooded, and made my initial bad hand even worse. My opponent tried to use the Graveyard Hate on me, but really, I think I boarded out a few of my channelers. Sorry, I forgot to show my sideboarding plan. But at least we can see it now. It's very bad to use Counterspell against most Saga decks, so I got them out. Also got out one Bubble, one Abundant Growth to get some... I got some Furies in. Just some very valuable cards that can do 2 for 1 for themselves. And that was it, so we can continue. I was playing first and having 2 Scions of Draco when playing first is very good in most situations. So in a lot of these situations, when playing a counterspell, you will have You'll play creature on turn 2, then be able to hold counterspell plus an bolt or binding for turn 3, or maybe just another creature. Okay, my opponent was I just attacked with Scions, and my opponent showed off their Fatal Push in hand and concedes the game. It's too big of a clock, especially considering I drew into third one, which would be overkill. So my opponent concedes this game too, and you can see just how good the Scion of Draco can be in this type of matchups. I keep decent hand on the game 3 and got my Scion of Draco, which is just very good card in this matchup. My opponent goes for the Ragavan Dash on 2, removing my counterspell from the top. Actually, in this game 3, I brought back this single counterspell from my sideboard. The 3 of them were still there. So just that was the only change. And my opponent immediately exiled it, so I didn't get a chance to draw it. And this Scion of Jacob was very good again, but my opponent had the Boseiju this time, but it was fine. I had my Ledger Shredder, immediately used the bubble, pumped it, make it bigger. I used my Abundant Growth to draw a card here, didn't want to use the Ragavan, wanted to use it for dash next turn because dashing is just works very well with the Ledger Shredder. You're able to connive with just having Ragavan and one spell each turn, one new spell each turn. I got two spells from, I got two draws from the bubble. So I got the Delirium from the iteration, played the Heat to clear the way, and misclicked. It was a misclick. Accidentally pressed 1 before dashing the Ragavan in this situation. So this was a pretty bad mistake, almost costing me the game. Then I used Heat to get rid of their Ragavan, and I was comfortable with their Tarmogoyf because I had a lot of creatures in hand and a lot of these connive abilities. So trying to find another spell, just got rid of this extra lands in this situation. I get Fury for the next turn. They're already very low on life. I have a lot of power on the field, so I'm okay if they go for attack with Tarmogoyf, which they do. And they play just Ragavan because most of my creatures are flyers, and I had 8 damage here actually, but it was enough for my opponent to concede, and that was the game. That were all the games from this league. Deck felt very good. I've always felt like I don't have a chance of losing a game while playing, and even after drawing that bad initial hand in the game 5 in the trophy game, felt pretty comfortable in this matchup that I'm going to turn this first loss around very easily and win it. And I was able to do this thanks to the Scion of Jago. This is like a mini Murktide in this deck, and just a very good threat to protect using your counter spells, and um, very good turn to play to then follow off with some other creatures interaction, counter spell, binding, card draw, and yeah. Okay, so that is it. As I said, list feels very strong to me. In my opinion, I think I perfected it. I really I used a lot of time on it, tested a huge number of different cars, different builds. Didn't get to this at first try, so I hope you like the build, I hope you like the gameplay. If you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, and that's it for today. Goodbye.